to Intuitive Clarifications with Natasha. I am so grateful you are here. And if you're listening later, Regan Forston is here finally.
Yay.
Last time he wasn't feeling very good at all.
Oh,
And then the time before that, it's just life has been going left and right, left
yep.
for all of us. And that's why we felt like we needed to talk about this story
Yeah.
about how things are and because this is going to be the last show before the new year. I'm going to be back
Yep.
live after the new year because I wanted to, I wanted to. Regan's being live here.
Mhm.
I love
Oops.
them. I love the
Got some
realism
chocolate on
here.
me.
But we're all in the midst of these big changes. And so
Yeah.
again, I keep talking about what we're doing, what energies we're in, but it seems like every time we walk into something, because we're coming up to the solstice, we're coming up into a new moon this week, it's like, it's just one thing after another, after another, after another
Yeah.
that's happening. And it's one of those things. So again, I'll be this is the last time live, and then I'll be posting off and on during my time off, but I will be live again after the new year. So it would
Yeah.
be
Same with me.
after
Yeah.
the first, because I think the first is actually on, is Wednesday, and then I'll be the final that next Wednesday is when I'll be live again.
Yeah.
So with that, I hope everybody's doing well. I know that we're all in this rocky road of life, and I know here in Washington we've gone through the floods, a major windstorm last night. I know that we had a major windstorm last night where all of a sudden this big gust came through, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay, I'm done now. The wind just kind of calmed down after that big kick. And it was kind of interesting listening because I'm really into the elementals and that kind of stuff. So it was kind of interesting that way. But I know it stirred a lot of people up with that wind. And, and Regan, how are you doing? I'm getting
I'm
off on
doing
my
great.
story. I want to hear what your story is here.
Well, we're both, I don't know, we've both been kind of kicking into action this whole year. It's been, I know, big uptick. I think I did, I was counting the other day well, I have 3 more to go. So I'll be 90, see, 98 life between life sessions. So that's one almost every 3 days. And but I've been working up to this for 10 years because I'd usually do 20 or 30 a year, maybe 40. And then last year was, or the year before was 50 something. And now this year, almost 100. So, but I couldn't have done that unless I'd worked my way up to it because you're running so much energy, through your body and whatever that it can be really wear and tear. But the thing I like about it is I've gotten a lot better at what I do. When I have people in the afterlife and they're talking to the council or they're um, visiting people on the other side and what they do in this life between life process, I'm able to navigate them a lot better so they have a better experience,
Mm-hmm.
over there. So it's really, really helped. And I really think too, maybe I think we talked about this before that us people that are what we call light workers that are assisting other people, it's a two-way street. I really think that every time I help someone that visits the afterlife for a while, I don't know, I feel like I've been there myself. I feel like I know more about the afterlife. I feel I'm being healed in some energetic way or in some, one of my other bodies, I guess. So I'm lucky, I think, but I'm thinking about, boy, I sure needed a lot of work. I got to go through all this healing, and stuff I did in other lifetimes.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And that's the thing is that's why we do the sessions that we do,
yeah,
is because, we get those little insights. And I know that, like yesterday I did a session and we both know her and, but it was one of those things that, she's very intuitive herself. She's very aware of things. And, like she was wondering why she couldn't go under. And I said, well, many times, when we are like we are, sometimes like when you did my session, I had to kind of go into just a meditative state.
hmm,
I didn't go under, but I just went into this like, okay, I'm just going to trust the walk. And I just
yeah,
went into this like open-mindedness of just guidance. Where am I going to supposed to go here and where am I supposed to go there? And I still talk with this part of me that I saw that we didn't spend much time there, but it was where I'm really rich in another lifetime, in another
yeah,
reality. But she's very lonely. And I'm now finding the friends. I'm finding abundance in another way. And so it was just an interesting thing. So, it's like going under your sessions have been very magical. And, if anybody is looking for somebody who wants to hypnosis, Regan's really good on Zoom and on other places. I do a
Yeah.
form of that in my sessions. I'm really good at helping people go through that understanding. And I'm more about the emotional base right now because we're going through so many emotions. And that's why I kind of was
Yes.
called to talk about a lot of these emotions that we're going through right now, because we're breaking down a lot of old stories, a lot of truths. Oh my gosh, the Mandela effect is like out there left and right, and like our generation, like even your generation, Regan, you probably are finding that, the government, where you were kind of to believe when you were younger, you believe the government 100%,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And now you
Not
can't
anymore.
trust them if you wanted to even say hi, are they going to say hi back to you?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, because are we important? Well,
Yeah. But I think I figured out some of this. I don't know. This is my take on things. Um, because you don't know what's real and what's not real anymore, because everything can be faked, and everything. So, but what it's doing is it's having to have us turn into ourselves to get the answers, rather than, we've always said, oh, the government can tell us the truth about this, then we don't have to figure it out ourselves, or the
mhm.
the pastor, or whatever, the guru. But now, because we get everything at us, we have to learn to decide which is BS and which is real. And I think we'll grow through that. I think we'll be, because we're supposed to grow as soul to be able to be, totally know what truth is. So it takes work, though. We're not used to having it handed to us on what's truth, and now, we got to decide, for ourselves.
Well, exactly. And even like the floods here in Washington, and I'm going to be very discreet on how I'm talking about this, because I don't want to push, onto anything.
Of
But
course.
it's like there's been people questioning how much was it a natural occurrence?
Oh,
You know what I mean? What did they do start doing something over in Hawaii that caused, because we never really get two funnels, back to back. Usually we get one good funnel, and
yeah.
then, and
That
then
It was that atmospheric river thing they call, right?
yeah,
Where you get
exactly.
a
And
lot
we
of
get
rain
them,
really fast.
yeah, we get them maybe twice a year, but usually one in the fall and one in the spring,
Yeah.
or we may get two in the spring, but they're like January and then again in April. It's not like it's not
Hmm.
a, it's not a one right after another. And that's just what happened to us. We just got one after another. That's why we've got levees breaking and stuff like that, because well, and two, the system is old. There's a lot of these dikes and the dirt is,
Yeah.
probably 60, 70 years old,
Yeah.
and it gets kind of saturated, and the ground got really saturated this time. That's why things
Yeah.
didn't really last as well, but
I
we're
didn't
all
realize,
okay.
because we had warnings that there was going to be atmospheric river, but it happened north in Portland and above, up
Hmm.
in Washington. You guys got the brunt of it,
Yeah, we
out
did.
there and everything too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I
Because
mean,
we got a major highway that is actually, it's going to take months to fix, because the river
mm,
went into the, I mean, we got so many major roads that, align with the rivers, they go
yeah.
along the rivers, and now they're going to
Hmm.
have to build bridges over those parts of the rivers, I think, because the
Boy.
river has taken out, some of that. So it's one of those things, though. You got to believe what you can believe, and you don't
Yeah.
want to believe, you don't have to believe, but I know for me, I saw some of those chemtrails about 3 days beforehand, and I've been seeing a pattern, and that's all I'm going to say.
I know.
That's all
Well,
I'm going to say.
the thing too, I went from not believing in very many conspiracy theories to believing in more and then less. But now, what I'm finding out, when all the truth is coming out about so many things about people are supposed to be telling us the truth and they're not, that a lot of those conspiracy theories have turned into be correct, because, we've been lied to, so,
Mhm.
you know,
Well, that's the thing, is that conspiracy is only as conspiracy as long as you don't want to find the truth,
yeah,
right? Usually, and that's one thing that somebody was saying one time. They said, that if somebody says a conspiracy theory, I'm going to look at it because
yeah,
it has more truth to it, and everything with discernment.
Yeah.
everything with
Every
discernment. And that's
discernment.
the
Yeah.
thing. And that's the thing that's based on a lot of these emotions that we're feeling right now is that we're stirring up a lot of that understanding of our truth and the wonderness and all the, it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just we got to find out what feels right to us in our gut,
Right.
and it's not necessarily our heart or our mind, because the mind is like going, holy freaking crap, what am I
Yeah.
thinking? What is going on here? And there's so many people now that I've heard that aren't watching the news, because
Yeah. I mean, either CNN or Fox News now. I don't know. I'll watch just a little bit, but even in the last 2 years, if I wanted to know what I think is the truth, I would listen to one on with this when they're talking about the same thing that happened, and the other one the same thing, and they both have different takes on whatever's happened, and
different
you go, wait a
perspectives.
minute,
Yep.
yeah, it's that way. But we all can feel the change that's going on now. That I really think we are heading to a higher level of frequency or a high level of understanding. And in order to get to that frequency where we ascend in a certain thing, a lot of the old has to break away. It has to fall
Mm-hmm.
apart. And not just, and I think in a way, all this stuff happened with the government, everything is kind of, it's the same things happen to us in a sense, that
Yes.
our consciousness is splitting up. So it's not just the United States, it's the whole world, politically, and people down to our own personalities or to our own selves are, we're falling apart, and that's a good thing. I like one thing that Bashar said recently. People, Bashar. I just love listening to him. He's like, someone, that's talking about things. And he says it's like we've been going down in a canoe down a river that's been, a little shaky, but we've been able to balance. And now we've hit the rapids. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have to hold on to dear life, and it's going to be okay. Just hold on. Once we get through the rapids, what always happens when you get out the rapids, you come into a really smooth, clean, easygoing river, So he says, just hang on for a while, this
Mm-hmm.
wild ride. I'm excited about it. I mean, I hate people going through all these things happening with floods and earthquakes and
Oh,
everything
I
like
know.
that.
Me too. It's like, especially when you may not believe that it was nature itself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, but that's that whole story of that understanding of working through things. And there's so many people around here that even like I have a principal at my school, and she has a house that her family has had for a long time. And I mean, you look at the house, and like the basement is like, it's up on a hill. It's in the floodplain, but it's up on a hill, and then there's a basement, and even got up into the house.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
It's huge because
That's
usually,
huge.
usually when it floods, you can see it getting up to maybe the bricks of the basement,
Yeah.
just up. But this got into the house, and it's like, so this flood, it was the 100-year flood.
Yeah. It's
And
funny. I haven't been watching the news much, but I'm sure it's been on, all the news, because that's huge, for Washington. I
mhm,
don't know why the thought always went through when I hear these floods, when I watch in movies about the old West and pioneers are going out and they build their house by a stream, and I'm thinking, I don't know if I think they were smarter in those days too. They would try to look to see where the high water mark is somehow, because if they're in the summertime, they're not in the wintertime, they would have their houses washed away all the time because of the rivers. So I'm
mhm.
guessing that they knew kind of to watch for signs of where high water mark is to build their houses above that, because otherwise they're going to lose it. So
Exactly. And I think that's one thing
yeah,
that I can't feel sorry for is, do you need to go for a minute? He's gonna have a son that's gonna be coming into the van, so that's why he's kind of taking a pause. But that's the thing is that, there's so many new people that have moved into newer areas, and they don't ask the neighborhood. They don't ask the people around it, "Hey, does this area flood?" They just go
yeah,
and build a 100,000 to 500,000 house, and then they're like, "My house is flooding," and it's like,
Yeah.
I have empathy. I have a lot of sympathy. I have a lot of empathy. The thing is, though, when you walk into this reality, you have to know what you're walking into. And that's the thing is that there's been so many people that sometimes go through these situations because they've been kind of, I'm going to say, blind about what they're going to do and who they are. And
Yeah.
we can't be blind anymore. We have to be willing to ask the neighbors. We got to be willing to ask the grocery store people, what is the normal thing around here? What is it that, talk to the people that know, because we have to listen to the elders of the world nowadays,
Yeah.
because they're going to know more about the realities than the youngers are. And I'm not talking about age. I'm talking about youngers in the sense of the ones who are coming in not knowing because they're young in that area, right?
Yeah.
They're not
Hmm.
used to being in that area. Like if I moved down to where you are, I would have to kind of check in with where, where's a good place? What's the good feeling about things? Where's where is the weather? Where's the people that don't have homes stay? It's
Yeah.
like, it's just kind of interesting because things are changing so fast.
I know. And my clients, it's been a kind of a theme always, but more now in the last year or two since this political things happened, and everybody's just trying to understand because so much of what's going on doesn't make logical sense.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't, like logic's thrown out the window, or truth has been bent or shifted or changed, or truth is just becoming what someone declares it to be rather than what it is. And so it's confusing everybody. Like, I mean, especially politically, that someone thinks if they can just say a lie for 100 times and we're going to start believing it, that it's the truth. And they have a hard time because you think, we grew up thinking that we all get justice, that the courts would be fair for everybody and there would be no corruption and all that. Now we're finding out even our just courts have, corruption and things. But that's as we find out from the other side, this planet down here is just a big school full of a bunch of naughty people that are trying to be more spiritual, but they're kind of falling off the wagon a lot and doing some really crazy things.
So
Uh,
what is some of the things that your clients, not giving specifics away about your
right.
clients, that, and they're in their interpretation of their personal walk in this, but what is it that you are hearing in your hypnotic sessions when you talk to the council? Because I know I
Hmm.
talk to the council and I
Hmm.
talk to, Mikhail, who's, kind of in partners with Bashar, not necessarily in the same house, but,
Yeah.
they're kind of in the same story. I hear a lot of these things from them, but what are you hearing from the council when you do sessions?
Well, um, I'll give you the example of when there's 28 of us Newton therapists and we swap sessions. We all went to the afterlife and asked the same questions about COVID and the vaccines. Okay.
Hmm.
Here we are, everybody's dying. The vaccines people are, I'm not anti-vaxxer. And trying to figure out what's the truth in the vaccines and all this. So we asked the same questions, and then we did a PowerPoint presentation, just as, because when you're doing research, it's not just what one person hears, but okay, if 28 people hear the same thing, that's probably means you're closer to the truth. Well, this is just an example about how things are now, but so they just burst our balloon over there. I mean, it's like in the bigger scheme of things in the universe, this COVID thing is just a tiny blip. It's not, first they said, well, everybody that died, they're fine. They're back home over here. They're doing great. So don't worry about anybody that died. We're taking care of them. They're fine. Okay. So, okay. And then we asked about the vaccines and they said, well, it's a personal choice. you know, in other words, it's up to each person to decide. They said if they think the vaccine will help them, it may, but if they don't, so, we didn't, there was no, uh, you know, um, a hidden thing in the formula to take our minds over and, all the stuff we thought we were going to find out. So what I'm thinking is all the stuff that we're going through right now in the bigger picture of things is not much. It's just what it is. The earth is shaking and changing because we've abused it a lot and has to balance itself out, and people are going to die, but they don't die. they just leave their body and go back home,
Hmm.
So, you know, and people have said about, I mean, this we can say because a number of clients have done it, but they're so frustrated, they'll say to the council, they'll say, what about this Trump guy? They're so frustrated or something. And they go, well, somebody has to play his part. The tree has to be shaken, and people have to have a mirror before them to see all of their own faults, which is what Trump is doing. He's like being in a marriage when you get married, and all of a sudden your spouse all of a sudden mirrors to you all of your faults, and sometimes people want to break the mirror because they don't want to see what's wrong in themselves. But
Exactly.
the idea is to look at the mirror and to love your wife for holding that mirror up and realizing that you have work to do to change, because and that's what you do in relationships. You find your weaknesses come up with each other, and because you're good people, you have to be aware and big enough to say, hey, I want this relationship to work, so okay, I see some things I need to change. So I think we're in this big change right now. We all need to look at ourselves and see, you know um, like with Trump being dishonest in business. uh okay, I remember in my lifetime, I've not always been 100% in business. I've tried to be pretty good, but I remember a few times when I bent the rules a little bit when I was younger,
Hmm.
and I paid for it. Oh boy, did I! And a couple times it came back to haunt me. But I've learned since then, and I wouldn't do those same things now. So what about prejudice now? The way he's come up and he's kind of allowed people that are prejudiced to come out in public and be prejudiced, where before it was all inside and they were
Hmm.
pretending not to be that way, right? So now you're starting to see the people's real selves. Okay, and then that shows you now you've got to make a choice. So to me, it's they're giving us all this choice right now. When you wake up in the morning, are you going to do things that bring people to the light, or are you going to go down the rabbit hole of negativity and fear and all that and be on that side? And I think that's where we're all being tested at right now.
Hmm.
Do you feel that too in a way?
Oh, yes, because I know that, in my house, my husband has been very much Republican, total, I mean, very,
Yeah.
very very Republican in the conversation. And I grew up more of in a Democratic house,
Same in
not
my family.
necessarily that I believe in everything that the Democrats do, and I don't believe everything the Republicans do.
Yeah.
I'm more neutral in my way, but people would say, you're more of a Democrat, just because of the way that I look at life. But the thing is, though, it's like one thing that I keep telling him when he starts talking about things, I say, I'm just tired of the separation. I'm tired of the mindset of he did it, she did it, they did it,
Yeah.
I didn't do it, and I'm just tired of the separation. And so that's one thing that I've been voicing a lot in
Well,
a lot of my understanding of what's coming out is that, if I'm just going to say darkness. I'm not going to say politics or it's not, I'm not naming them, whoever
yeah.
them is, right?
Yeah.
But if darkness wants to keep us separated, they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And it's time for us really not to be separate. And that's the thing. I'm so grateful for the people who of color of some sort, right? It doesn't matter, of the Asian,
Yeah.
there's so many names out there. It's hard to say what's right. I'm not trying, I don't want, I'm trying to be kind here. That it's like whatever color you are, it's like I've been hearing a couple people saying, that we can't hold them for what their ancestors did. We have to be now. And right now, I know a lot of people that are good people of all colors. We got to
Hmm.
be now, not then, or because it is the reverse, psychology of separation,
Hmm.
and that's the thing is it's about finding the togetherness. It's not that we're all, like I say to people, we're all individual pieces of the puzzle, but we're all the same puzzle. And
Yeah.
it's like we have to come together sometimes in that partnership of knowing you in the puzzle piece, you might be the ear and I might be the foot, but we're all kind of coming together in the same board of life. And how can we make this better picture come together? And separation, if we come down to the basis of it, is that's what's really going to hurt us. It's not necessarily what we think. We can think all individually, but we have
Mm-hmm.
to honor what the other person's thinking, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Because when I'm saying that, I'm thinking of like back in a day when, people used to ride horses, and everybody would be kind of getting along, and all of a sudden this newcomer would come in, and they would start, well, I'm going to buy up your land, I'm going to buy up your land, I'm going to buy your land. And then what does that do? That actually brings the town together most of the time, so that they're not feeling so separated, because there's the person who's trying to take over. And so maybe this whole government thing, I'm not, like I said, I'm trying not to name it,
Mm-hmm.
because it's worldwide, it's global,
Yes,
right?
it is. Well, when I mentioned Trump, I mean, I'm sure I could find Democrats to say the same thing about,
Oh,
because
exactly, and I'm not even
it's
saying
both
that.
sides,
I'm
both
yeah, no, I'm
sides
not
are.
trying to name you out that you said it and
Yeah.
I'm not, but
Well,
I just wanna,
yeah, I didn't think that
but
either,
I'm
but
grateful you said that. Yeah, because this is worldwide that we're going through this upgrade. It's not just the United States. We're just living in the States to notice it.
I know. Yeah. I mean, and these catastrophes are happening all over the world now too. It's not just Washington that's getting flooded, but I forget, just a few weeks ago, some other country that I didn't even think of or something. I went, they had this big flood, that's happening. So I don't know. I think I think I would ask people to just, when we get frustrated at all this stuff, is first kind of gently look at themselves a little bit and look at some of their things that they maybe have issues with, and just say, hey, you know what? I'm finding I'm a little prejudiced, or well, maybe I'm not so honest in business. I think I need to upgrade here and to do a better job.
Mhm.
And I think with those changes, that'll help the whole. Just think, if everybody changed just a little bit, the world would be a much better place, that way. Um, oh, well, I'll give you an example of it was this client, and they came in as a couple. Uh, the wife had health issues and stuff, and he's trying to be the caregiver. Well, it's hard to be a caregiver when you have a person there, and the caregivers, especially, like, say if it's a wife. Okay, say you're a husband, your wife gets sick and she has to be cared for all the time, and you got a business to run and you're trying to help with the kids and do everything there too. It's very, very hard, but you feel guilty because you think you should be perfect and you shouldn't be upset or it shouldn't be
Mhm.
hard, but it is. It's very, very hard. And in this one case, he started his anger management was not the best, and he would be saying and yelling and doing things. Well, the thing that was good about him was he finally realized this isn't working, and he got some help, you know, and he went to an intensive program to help him to learn to deal with his emotions, and it has completely infused their relationship with more love now,
Oh,
because
wow.
it's
Congratulations
beautiful.
to him to be able
Yeah.
to trust himself enough to know that his emotions were willing to be heard.
Right. And because I said, I told him, I said, you know what? I'm looking at you and you're telling me this stuff because he's in his 40s and I was in my 40s when I started doing serious work. And I said, you're just right on time. I says, us guys, we're kind of brain dead till we're in our 40s and we realize that sometimes our actions can help hurt other people. And we're good people inside. We don't mean to do that, but we do. We yell and scream and throw things and whatever, like I did when I was in my 40s. So I said, you have a good, because I could see she was so happy with the changes he's made already and his desire to be a better person and a better
Mhm.
husband. And the joy, and when I saw her look at the love that she had for him because of that, and then him look back at her, I went, okay, you guys are on a great trajectory right now. You're going to have a good thing, and that's going to really help with her health issues too, because a
Mhm.
lot of that is the stress. The stress with him and her makes the health issues worse. You
Mhm.
know, so
And that's the thing
anybody,
is our bodies right now are going through a huge upgrade,
yeah,
and a lot of these illnesses, you can believe what you want to, but they are part of this upgrade. A lot of us keep going and we don't want to listen. Like my husband ended up getting really sick over Thanksgiving for a couple of days. And, honestly, in some ways, he has a hard time honoring his body. And during this time, he actually did honor his body more than he ever has before. And I was so proud of him. And, you know, and then so then when I was, a week later, and I was getting tired, I actually, as much as I had the dishes to do, I had, the house to do, and kind of getting into the holiday season. Well, what did I do? I laid down and I took a nap because that's what my body wanted to do. And I can
Yeah.
tell you, I was using my tuning fork, I was using castor oil, I was staying off of dairy, I was doubling up on my zinc and C and a lot of other stuff, and the tag, I wasn't it, and that's where I'm so grateful that I have the immune system and the knowledge that, I believe I'm healthy.
Yeah.
I believe I'm abundant in my health, and that's the thing. I may negotiate a little bit of something and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but I can actually tell you why my tummy is off for a reason. It's like,
Yeah.
why am my tummy aching a little? Well, because I chose to eat such and such, and it wasn't a good thing for me, right? So,
Yeah.
we have to honor where our bodies are going too, because we're all getting this upgrade that is so huge. So if you feel like you can't sleep right now, oh my gosh, hallelujah, because there's a lot of energy out there. There's like I'm actually struggling with, I don't want to say struggling. See, I'm changing my words here. Um, I'm negotiating having the understanding that even when it's nighttime, usually remember when we were younger and at night, as soon as the sun went down, it was calmer, right? The energy was calmer. There
Hmm.
was just a calmness. Right now, I'm not feeling calm until about 3 in the morning.
Until 3 in the morning. Wow.
Yeah, because there's such a vibration out there right now of the planet changing, the weather's doing its dance, whatever the story is, that there's just this vibration that's out there, and I'm trying to separate from myself even with all the knowings I have. And I've been trying to do my better with it. And so there's that stimulation that we're going into, and a lot of us are figuring out that we're ADHD, and and that's that extra stimulation. So like even I was talking to somebody who, she's noticing that she's trying to heal her nervous system. And I said, so when you're playing games on your phone, right, are you on a timer? And she went,
Oh.
oh, yeah. I said, well, if you put your games on a timer, your nervous system never gets a rest. It's always like anxious and going and going and going and going and going. And
Yeah.
so in order to start healing your nervous system, you got to have your nervous system be able to, like playing games on your phone, yes, there's addiction. Yeah, I get it, but there is this benefit to it too. And if you can do non-timers so that you can slow down a little bit, especially at the end of the day, that you can slow down your nervous system so that it can start feeling safe being in a slower mode, and that could help the backside of things. It's coming in the back door, let's say, in healing where we're at and what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, with all these changes coming, I mean, this is this type of, we talked about this a few years ago too. Thanksgiving, Christmases, we always talk about how joyful and everything it is, but people that have had abuse, people that are suffering from emotional PTSD or this sort of thing, it's when it comes to a head because it's family, like you've been able to distance yourself from Aunt Martha, who you never got along with most of the year, but now she's coming for Christmas, and all of a sudden everything brings brought up again. So for a lot of people, this is not a happy time, Thanksgivings and Christmases. So,
Mm-mm.
but I think, matter of fact, you and I can both help people with that as far as it goes because, I use that energy psychology with heavening touch and tapping and EMDR, and they all are real good with healing childhood dramas or healing stuck emotions in our body.
Yeah.
Um, I think I mentioned I had to, I think, and we've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now. That that one client that I had that Thanksgiving, she hated it because her older sister was going to be there, and she remembers the day that her older sister broke her doll when she was a kid, and now they're in their 60s. And so every time at Thanksgiving they start arguing about that again, and it gets awful. And it was something that happened when they were just kids, but some people, they hold on to that stuff, and they start acting like children again, even though
Hmm.
they're adults. So these modalities we use break up all that, so that they kind of updates people's software. So you start looking at your issues from an adult, instead of being stuck at looking at it like when that happened when you were a child. People
Hmm.
don't, you know, which is interesting, that way. Something else too, I kept, all this change is coming too. I'm really, I mean, I can't say for sure, but I'm just my feeling, because I'm watching all these changes in my sessions, is the alien agenda thing it's been coming up over and over and
I was
over
going
and
to ask
over
you
again.
about that. What are they? I have an understanding. I have a knowing, but
Yeah.
what is your take on some of
Well,
this language you're getting?
my clients are coming in wanting to know some of that stuff, because in the last 5 years, since the TikTok video that the government showed, it's kind of, people have started who didn't believe before are now starting to come on the side of believing. And they just did a survey that says, for the first time in since they've been taking surveys on this, there's more people that believe that UFOs is real rather than
Mhm.
not. So we're over the 50%. We're in like 54, 55% now. We're heading that way. So um, when I've had people come in and they go to past lives in this last year, I've had like, oh boy, four I can remember right off the top of my head, and it surprised them as much as me, as they ended up being aliens from other planets. I had one that was a reptilian, and what made it real is that so here's this person. They go through in past life regression, we have you go through a tunnel, it's a light at the end, and when you come out, you're in a past life. Okay. So he comes out, and I say, well, put your hands out in front of you and tell me what color's your skin. And he doesn't answer me for a while. He's just moving his head around, and he says, I don't think I'm human, you know? And he was looking at his hands, and his hands would be solid. And he says I look like a reptile. I look like a lizard or something. Their hands, kind of like people, but when he looked at his hands, they would be solid, and then they would be like a holograph. And it was like back and forth, like being human, solid and not. So I said, okay, when I count to three, you're going to go take me back to where you're from, to your home, your planet. So he's above his planet and describing what it looks like. And his planet was the same way. It was kind of holographic and kind of solid and all the thing. So I had him go to an important event, and he was a teacher teaching other reptilians how to manipulate energy. And it was that's how they learning to shapeshift. Where they could be solid, they could be not solid, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and um, and then I had him go to an important event, and a council was knighting him because he was about ready to go on a journey, and it ended up being Earth. And he came to Earth, and it was before there were people here. You know, he's in trance, and he keeps just saying, "It's so beautiful, the
Hmm.
oceans. Oh my God!" He was so taken, but this planet was like heaven. It was so
Yeah.
beautiful. So when my client came out of that, he goes, "What the heck?" Like, what was that? Wow. But it was so real. And then here's what makes me think something's happening here, because the very next day I had another session with another man. He's thinking he's going to be Napoleon, or somewhere, because he had this thing about Europe in that time. He thinks he
Uh-huh.
was there or something at that time. And so he comes out of the tunnel, and he's looking down at what looked like to be Antarctica. It was just snow and cold and everything. And I'm thinking, well, why is he up in the air? And I said, okay, when I count to three, if you ever landed in the ground and you were there, you'll be there. I went 1, 2, 3, he's on the planet. So then I asked, are you freezing, or whatever? He says, no, I'm comfortable. It confused me. And I said, well, put out your hands in front of you. And he puts his hands on, he goes, I'm in a spacesuit, and it says, I don't think I have human hands, he said. So I'm thinking, what happened the day before? And now I got another one the next day. And come to find out, when he took me to his planet, it, the planet was, I don't know how big it was, but as he's above the planet looking down, as he's getting back to it, there's these glass domes. They might have been 50 or 100 miles big, big
Mm-hmm.
old domes. And there were cities beneath these domes. And he found himself going through an entryway in the dome. He's walking on a marble platform. And I said, well, let's go to see where you live, where your family is. So all of a sudden he's in a room and he's seeing 10 other beings. And he goes, they look just like me. What's going on here? And come to find out, he's a clone. He was one of the Greys. You had him look in the mirror, and he was had the big eyes and stuff, and he was cloned, but he was, as a soul, entered that body, in that
Mm-hmm.
of that clone, and he was manufactured or cloned to specifically do research in a certain way on different planets. So that, again, that surprised the heck out of him. And when I had him go to his death scene, he didn't die really. He just kind of expired. It's just kind of like, and his soul left that thing. So
Mm-hmm.
it was crazy. Um, so, but what I hear too, and maybe you from other mediums and things, because they're picking up on this stuff, and Bashar and the different people is saying that it's time, folks. Time for you to realize you're just a little speck in the same scheme of things. And what I get from Dolores Cannon's work and all the work she did for years and stuff is that, yeah, there's some good aliens and some bad aliens, just like human beings, you know,
I
and
know we can't get attached to the story. We got to see
no,
what it is at the time that it is.
yeah,
Read the face of the person you're talking to. Read the
yeah,
energy of what the negotiation you're going through.
yeah,
Be ready to be open-minded. And that's the thing, is our minds are going through this upgrade right now.
yeah,
Because we have to awaken a lot of our old belief systems that were snubbed out by family stories or religious stories or
yeah,
whatever it is. And it's really time to really hone into our belief systems. I know for me, it's like I know that Jesus is Joshua, right?
right.
But it took a little while for my mouth, I'm going to call it, to say Joshua instead of Jesus.
Jesus, right. Yeah, and either
Because
either
that's
or
what.
he'll, yeah. Like I think on the other side he answers to both because he knows, some people call him. It's like me. Some people call me Reagan, and some people call me Regan. I don't even notice. I just okay, whatever you want to call me.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so I think that's part now of this. Everything is changing right now. We're raising to a higher vibration. We're starting to find out that we've had just pieces of truth, and now we've kind of, I think, earned it in a way that now it's like, okay, time for you to get a bigger picture, God is saying. So I'm going to open up these things. And I think just realizing that we're just one species among zillions of others that are all over the universe, it's going to humble us in some sense, and it's going to give us a bigger picture of what God is and what everything is. You know,
Hmm.
and I think that's a good thing, really.
Hmm.
Just,
Well, even when the movie Men in Black came out, do you
oh
remember that
yeah,
movie?
hmm
I love that movie.
hmm
Not because of the characters, but it's like just that moment when the cockroach said, he was gonna step on the cockroach and he goes, "Thank you, ma'am,"
yeah,
and kept walking. Or when they opened up the keyhole and then they were the keyhole. I mean, it's just like it was so life knowing. I mean,
yeah,
I just was like, this is actually reality. I get, it's like because we're all kind of part of this bigger system, and we're gonna have the not so goods and the it is so goods, right? And
hmm
like this understanding that the angels are star beings. They're just
hmm
of a more uh pure, for lack of a better word, negotiation of the realities.
hmm
And so going into this, that we're coming into this big understanding, and we have to understand that maybe the truth that we know is not going to be the truth that we're going to be living, you
No,
know
it's
and
kind
and
of
a lot of people are going to
unraveling.
struggle with that, and I get that. But that's the thing, is like I've said this before, I'm not going to be stuck on what dimension I want to be on.
hmm
I'm going to really negotiate what is the reality that I want to be in today, and in the understanding. I'm still going to have to drive on the freeway. for a while,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
still going to have to go into the grocery store for a while. I'm still going to have to negotiate the kid at school that is, telling, like this morning, I had a teacher that came up and said, "Who was talking to you this morning?" I said, "Oh, that was just so and so," and it was like, she wanted to bait me. I'm not going to be baited,
Mm-hmm.
because she's at a different vibration than I am,
Yeah.
you know, and she
Well,
wants to blame everybody for her life. And it's like, I'm sorry, kiddo, you got to take responsibility for what your life is, even though she's she's a fifth grader right now. Right.
yeah.
It's just that awakening that we're going through.
Right. And there's a lot, what I have been told by the counsels on the other side through my clients is that fear is the fear that we hold in our bodies is the number one thing that's keeping us from ascending, in a sense. Is fear of
Mm-hmm.
this, fear of that, that's a killer, you know. And and the second thing, especially when they talk about health issues, because a health person will appear at the council and they'll talk about their health issues. And when they talk about the things that is causing us to make ourselves sick, and it's lack of self-love. Okay, well, like we say, we're really it says this planet, we need to get with it here and start loving ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and I always use that term too, that we're perfectly imperfect, that you taught me, which is I do that with my therapy sessions a lot of times. And it's the fear, and it's also stuck emotions in the body that have been holding on to anger and hatred from the past, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people think they're through it. They think, "Oh, I've forgiven my dad for doing that. He was doing the best he could do." But then when I go further in there, like if I test them, have them close their eyes, and I say, "Okay, now think of that instance now. Let's see if you're totally out of the out of that. Think of that instance that happened with your dad, or say your mom, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and watch the needle go from 0 to 10 in your mind. Your subconscious will show you, and people will go, "Oh my God, that's at a 6 still. I thought I was done with that." And I go, "Nope, it's still stuck in your body somewhere." And and that's
Yeah.
when we do that. That's when we do the tapping,
Or
and
the
we do
haven.
the havening and that, and we knock that down from a 6 to 5 to 4 to 3 as much as we can, and then have them just be aware of that they still have some forgiveness that they have to work on for their father or their mother. In the Bible, when someone came up to Jesus and says, "Well, how many times I got to forgive this person?" And I think he said 70 times 70, meaning,
Mm-hmm.
it's a process, so but when our bodies, when we have that anger and resentment in that in there, think of it this way: is like if you have your energy going through a pure pipe and everything is just perfect, and then we get a little angry, we squeeze that pipe a little bit so not so much energy goes through it, and then
Mm-hmm.
we think and we think and we think, and pretty soon that energy is having to squeeze through to have to get to where it can regulate our bodies. And after a while, that sickness starts happening,
Mm-hmm.
that way. And there's books. I know you have the book, right? Again, that's about where if you have a pain in a certain part of your
Yes.
body, what that's kind of related to.
Mm-hmm.
There's several books out there now, but what's the name of the one that you had there again? What's it called?
It's Ina Siegel's where do I have it?
Remember?
Yeah, it's Ina Siegel's, it's like the human body or something like that. It's I thought I had it right here, but I've been taking it to sessions and
That's okay.
to shows and stuff like that.
Well, if
But
somebody go, yeah. What's her name
you
if
can
people Googled her name?
Ina Siegel. She's Australian.
Okay. Yeah. And there's Dolores Cannon's daughter, Julia Cannon, Cannon, just came out with a book last year, and it's about what they found out from all these healings they've done about where people store different things, and
Hmm.
that helps you to kind of, if because some of this is subconscious, your conscious mind doesn't even remember, like if you were abused when you were 3 or 4 or 5 years old, a lot of people don't have any memory of that, but it's in there, in other
Hmm.
words, any fears and things they have. So, you know, um, anyway,
It is,
so
and even last night, because I was negotiating, wanting to go to sleep because the clock told me it was that time that I should have been
mhm,
asleep already 3 hours. But there's the should, could, woulds, right? And so I was like just kind of going into that meditative state, going, oh, okay. So there's an anxiousness in me. Okay, so I'm going to release and shift out that anxiousness. Where's that sitting in me? And I just kind of started feeling, and I would feel myself settling more and more and more into my bed. It's like just that coming down, like the shoulders getting lowered and lowered and lowered. So even if we just use the words, I'm releasing and shifting the anxiousness in my body. I'm
Yeah.
healing and honoring the fear I have, and I'm releasing you to the greater good. Even just saying those words in our body can really help
Yeah.
move things through, because we're all going through something, and it's that we're holding so much, and that's where, like, the liver, the stress can really make your liver be fatty,
Yeah.
and the spleen and the gallbladder, and a lot of those different things, and kidneys are about flushing our life. And so, it's all about doing better. And so many people right now, there's a thing that's, with the cough and the
Uh,
sore throat, and that's
yeah.
about speaking our truth and
Yeah.
honoring our truth. And I'm going to say, though, that and I've said this left, right, and up and down the center, that sometimes we have to, there's things in our life that are unforgivable, but take a moment, if you can, and let it become more neutral. Don't let that moment be more powerful than the moment of you walking forward in your life.
Yeah.
A lot of us have these moments where are unforgivable, and we haven't necessarily said, oh, but it doesn't have any more power over me.
Yeah.
And we have to, and when I'm saying that, I'm actually feeling that releasing in my gut area, right?
Yeah.
Right underneath my rib cage, because I'm saying those words that these things don't have no more power over me.
Yeah.
Those actions that happen, let's say back when somebody didn't know better to do better, there was this unforgivable action. Well, but we have to be able to walk forward, and sometimes, a lot of times, our life is about walking forward, is walking past those emotions that get triggered as we're walking by that moment.
Yeah.
That PTSD moment, the stress moment, the all these different moments are more blocks about saying, I can't go there because I have too much anxiety, or I have too much pain, or I have too much memory. And like, I was watching a video the other night, and I don't know if this is true for you, Regan, but a lot of us women, when we remember something, we remember the emotion that we had during that time.
Yeah. Mm.
When you think of something, do you have the emotion around it, or do you have the memory around it?
Both. I mean, the memory comes and then the emotion follows real quickly. Like I'm just thinking of something now I did when I was in my 20s, that I did, because we're talking about this, and then so it's replaying there, and I
Mhm.
could feel in my gut. I could just feel a little bit of energy there, and I've pretty much dealt with it, but it's still hanging on a little bit. Um, I think like there was a client I had years ago, and I've always felt so bad for him because I moved away and I was only able to help him a little bit. And I wish I could have stayed in that area and helped him more. And maybe he's gotten other therapy. But he was a teenager with other kids in the car, and they were drinking, and he crashed. And he was okay, but and two of the other kids were good. But one girl, she's been paralyzed from the waist down ever since she was 18 now. And he
Mm.
still goes to see her like every year sometimes, but he's not, it's like he's in his 40s now. It's happened like 20 years ago, but he carries that guilt all the time. And I mean, man, that's hard to get over, because when you're in your 40s or 50s, you look back and you see how stupid you were when you were 18 years old, and
But
and
we
it,
were all that age. We
I
were
know.
all in that moment. And, she decided to get in the situation with you. So there's a little bit of, it's like, yeah, 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 yeah. I know we are
Yeah,
responsible for what we do, but we have to remember that this is part of we don't know what the greater picture is
I
in
know.
life. And that's why I
Yeah,
really have that mantra. I'm asking for divine healing on this, because this is bigger than what I know as the human that I am,
I know.
you
But
know?
and so many times people look at their life and it's ruled by one bad thing that they did. instead of looking at it in the whole and saying, look, you've done 1,000 good things and you did that one bad thing, and looking at it, is a whole thing. But people get stuck in that, they define their life by a bad
Mhm.
mistake they made. That's why I don't like I have a lot of my clients that go to Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever. And I've been to sessions with them before when they'll take me there with them and stuff. And I've always been, it's just a pet peeve with me about when they first say, hey, I'm so-and-so and I'm an alcoholic. Well, some of these guys haven't had a drink in 20 years, you know?
Yeah.
So in a sense, it's just saying, hey, I'm so and so, and when I was young, I did a bad thing, but now I'm okay, and I'm trying to help you guys be okay. But I understand why they're doing that, because it's like they're trying to get the new people in there to acknowledge that they got a problem, and like, look it in the face and let's just call it what it is. Hey, you got a problem with alcohol, but I don't like people saying that over and over and over again. And it's like, to me, it's like, it's not awarding them for the work that they've done, that they've become a really
Mhm.
wonderful person.
Or they can even say something like, which is longer, but hi, I'm Natasha. I am a recovered alcoholic who has now decided to be here to support you in the journey while I'm still
Yeah,
supporting my life's walk. It's
I
like,
like that.
you know what I mean? It's like, it's that moving forward, because when we say that I am something,
Yeah.
I am something. Now, my husband, he's negotiated this, and we've had this discussion, and he knows I can talk about a little bit of this within respect of it. But,
Hmm.
he, um, he says that it reminds him of the time that he was doing those things, and it kind of keeps him humble.
Yeah.
It brings out the humbleness in him. And
Yeah.
so,
When he says I'm an alcoholic.
mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
But we have to
So,
be careful. We have to be careful that I
yeah.
am. And that's the thing is that remembering, I wake up every morning and say, I am of success.
Yeah.
I am walking self forward. I am Patty, and I am. I love that, Patty.
Is that Patty?
My name is Patty, and I am the I am. I
Yeah.
love that. And Patty, I love you, and I know why we're not judging, because I think that you know whatever treatment system we go into, do what works for you.
Yeah.
Do what feels right to you. And thank you, Patty, for being here.
Can
She's a
I?
good friend of mine.
Good. Well, maybe before, because I know we only got a few minutes left here.
And
And
it's getting darker where you are.
can you see? I know it. I'm getting darker and darker because it's getting dark so early. But can I? I want to tell people the prayer that I got when I was on the other side in heaven, and my guide was with me, and he gave me a prayer in my mind to say. But I think it's universal in a way.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is what he said. He says, what we're hoping that, Regan, that you'll teach people to do, and that everybody should be doing, is first to realize that um, they're being born and being in this life is not an accident. You know, people decided themselves on the other side to come down and go through difficult times because of what they could learn from it and how they could grow. Um, and the fact that they're never alone with the work you and I do. We can tell people, everybody right now who's even listening to this podcast, your higher self or your guide or angel or something is hovering. I mean, that's just what they do. Okay. They're always watching over you. So we always have help from the other side. And that, the afterlife, because we've been there and experienced that the afterlife is real. Okay. So um, this prayer that I heard is, I'm above the earth, I'm looking down at the earth, and I heard it in my head, was this: as you wake up, you declare yourself as a vehicle for good. Okay. Because that sets the tone of the day. Instead of waking up grumpy, oh, I'm going to hate this day, you wake up, even if you're going to have a difficult day that's ahead of you, you say this, just kind of look up and say, bless this day and those that I serve, as I keep one foot in heaven and one foot planted firmly on earth to accomplish my mission. So just something, an acknowledgement, just like what you do. You have a acknowledgement when you wake up of that you're here to be of service, and to be a light worker, instead of a dark worker.
Mhm.
So it's the fact of just acknowledging your higher self, acknowledging that you want to do this, and they'll say that that'll help you to put more pluses on the board instead of minuses during the day. that
Exactly.
way.
Mindset is huge right now. And it is honoring the emotions we're in and that kind of stuff. And Patty, I'm so grateful you said that because, she says that I am an alcoholic, and we
Oh,
have to understand where we're at. But Patty, I want you to remember that that moment that you had that decision that you were an alcoholic, that you decided to do better. And she says, the best thing that ever happened to me, and so much growth. And that's the thing is that this whole thing is about, we have a point where things happen where we go, this is what I am,
yeah,
right? It's that surrender, trust, and accept. I surrender and accept. I am this thing that I am. Now it's time for me to move on and appreciate the growth that we're all doing. Because I know for me, I used to spend money like upside down and inside out, and that was my addiction.
yeah,
And now I'm actually very much respecting my money that I have, and respecting the understanding that I'm in a total different understanding. And so that's what we're talking about, Patty. So it's like,
yeah,
I do not want to arc anybody into saying that you should not believe in what you are. If that's a statement that helps you move forward, hallelujah. It's
yeah,
like, you have to believe what you need to believe. I just want people to remember that when we speak the I am, whatever we speak after the I am, it claims us. And if
yeah.
we were saying if I am SIKE or SICK, it's like, I don't even want to say the word. It's like, then you may be what, like where I say I am healthy. I am of health. My body and I are negotiating that healthy part. So
Yeah,
it's just being careful of where we're at. So I get it. So Patty says, and Kimberly, thank you for being here too. Um thanks, Regan. I'm going to start saying that when I wake up. Yeah, because I
just
say it when I wake up. I say I'm of
yeah,
a frequency of abundance. I am in alignment for the abundance to walk with me. And there was a day when I was going to have it was just a day where things were going to be going forward. And it was like a day where I was like going, holy crap, that I know that this is not going to be an easy day. And I was starting to go down that rabbit hole. And I was like, whoa, stop.
yeah.
Stop, brain.
I know.
Oh, yeah. We don't know what it's going to be yet. We're
Well,
going to
see
walk forward and we don't know
what.
what it's going to be yet.
Well, and Patty was right too. I think she was alluding to, and I'll say this because I've met so many people that have gone through addictions because I've helped a lot of them get through a lot of it, and the people that they become through the metamorphosis of having an addiction and conquering it really, really sharpens their character. And
Hmm.
so it's almost like I think some people plan to have to go through difficulties like that because it's the only way you can really start to be vulnerable to realize that there is something greater than yourself, and
Hmm.
that you're down here to learn something. So I had always said that if I had a big, like if I was Jeff Bezos with Amazon and I knew some people that had been to AA and they'd been sober for a while, I would hire them before I'd hire anybody else because I know that they would have greater character than
Yeah,
people who had just had it easy all the time. So
exactly.
yeah. So
Exactly.
let me tell people how to get a hold of me before we lose light totally here and in total darkness.
I know, we can keep talking, couldn't we?
I know it. Yeah, we always can. I love being on your show once a month. So it's visittheafterlife.com. It's right on the screen there. And there's a lot of videos there that talk about this process where anybody wants to visit the afterlife can spend a few hours there. It's like having a near-death experience without the death part. And
Hmm.
we've done this with about heading towards 80,000 people now. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a life change. It's like having like people that come back from near-death experience, they're usually transformed. It just shifts their life into a gear, getting this bigger picture. But also, once we were talking about addictions and things, in my website on the traditional therapy page, if anybody out there that's listening to this has some addictions or you're dealing with stress or PTSD, that's my specialty too, or grief. Also, if you look at the page there, at the traditional therapy page, watch some of the videos and you'll see some of these modalities work like magic
Oh,
in
they're
helping people.
amazing.
Yeah. And Natasha now, I mean, and I got to give Natasha credit too, because I've had people go to the afterlife and we've identified some things, and some things weren't really, really clear, and they've been able to call Natasha, and she's been able to find some clarity in some of the things too. So I want to thank Natasha for
Oh,
having
you're
that
more than
ability to
welcome.
do that.
I'm
And
so grateful for the trust and the gift of that story. I'm just ever so grateful for that because
yeah, and you're at Intuitive Clarifications. You can't see it all on there, but it's .com, right?
yes, it is.
intuitivedevocration.com, and I know you got lots of videos up there and stuff, and you continue to be a good partner with me. With sometimes we do the 1-2 punch with people and just get them fixed.
Well, hopefully, because it's up to them to fix themselves, but we
That's
just give them
true.
the
We
tools
just
to
assist them.
hopefully negotiate some of it.
Correct. That's
But
yeah. That's
thank
a
you
better
for
way of
being
putting
here,
it.
Regan. And if
You're
you
welcome.
can, if you know somebody needs to listen to this show, please share it. Please like it, and if you want, please remember your truth is your truth. Regan and I are just a perspective,
Yeah.
perception to hopefully turn the key to maybe have a little bit more belief in yourself. So Patty, thank you for not too bad person trying to be good. Yeah, you are. Natasha's helped me in so many ways. Thank you. Yes,
Yes.
Kimberly. Yeah, we've done some work together, and and I love this, Patty. You said the right. She's been writing some poetry for me, and I think
Oh,
she's just a great poetry person. I am beautiful child of God, and I have I okay. I'm gonna restate this. I am a beautiful God child of God, and I have a right to be here.
yes,
I am a
exactly.
beautiful child of God, and I have a right to be here. Very well said, Patty. And I think
Very
I'm going
well.
to end with that because everybody has a right to be here.
You're right. So I will see you next month, okay? And
Okay.
we'll be back to work. I'm going to Hawaii for Christmas, and then I may be in Palm Springs when the third Wednesday comes up. I'll be at a film festival there for 10 days, and then
Oh,
and then I'm getting to work. I've got most of January and 3/4 of February already booked, so I'm going to be busy when I get back.
well, sounds good. Well, remember that you don't always have to be the third Sunday. You can be,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Okay.
that we can change the second or the fourth. So,
Okay.
we
I'll
can
know. Yeah, I'll know more when I look at the calendar and see. But thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. And thank you everyone for being here. Blessings to all. And Merry Christmas and Happy New
Okay.
Year. Magic, magic,
Okay.
magic coming in.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everybody, and Happy Hanukkah.